Hello there, we're here to look today at the Electrohome setup, a turntable and speakers. The model is the EB30 powered speakers, and these are the model, this is the model RR36 turntable. We have the documentation that comes with it. So a lot of people are getting into vinyl these days, which is nice. It's obviously a little bit of a throwback, certainly to my youth. And in my youth, this sort of mid-century wood veneer, brownish looking stuff was ubiquitous. That's basically what everybody had back in the day. And Electrohome is one of those brands that goes back to what it says right here, since 1907. One of the old school storied brands. A lot of times with these brands, they get sort of repurchased by other companies that sort of resuscitate them. This is one of those things. It's not as if it's been the same company since 1907, but nonetheless it is one of those brands that certainly back in the day were pioneers when it came to creating electronics, frankly. And so here you have something that itself has a throwback look, it has a throwback name, it certainly fits the nostalgia of dealing with something like vinyl, and that's pretty cool. What I really like about this is that it looks the way that we want the things to look at. The speakers look like speakers, the turntable looks like a turntable. My own turntable, disappointingly, looks like an oil rig almost. I love turntables that just look like turntables. Boxes, platters, with a base, and a really nice dust cover on top of it. That's sort of when in my mind's eye, think about what a turntable kind of should look like. That's what it looks like. The construction itself is decent. The speaker performance is decent. You're kind of getting with what it's at, where it is in the market, where it's actually situated. But there's a couple of real advantages of going with this that I'd like to discuss. So many people getting into vinyl now, frankly, don't even buy players. So let's not even let's not gloss over that fact. There's a ton of people now buying records for collectability, which is great, but you know, the reason that we actually want to have records really is to actually play the music, to actually take time to actually have the ritual of music playback, and that's one of the things that you can get even with a relatively introductory system such as this one. Yet a lot of people buy turntables, and the only thing that they have to play it on is maybe, let's say, a Bluetooth speaker. And a lot of devices now have Bluetooth capabilities, and you know, that's fine, but what you're doing is you're taking the sort of analog sound reproduction and then immediately digitizing it, and often doing it on a speaker which is essentially mono, just a single sort of placement. Even if it reproduces stereo or might have a couple drivers in it, it's kind of situated in one location. Not ideal. So one of the big advantages of a system like this is simply being able to do exactly what I've done here, is to separate the speakers with a little bit of distance. They don't have to be this close to the turntable, just for me shooting this obviously, but you can spread them out. The way these work, normally when you have speakers like this, you're going to need amplification. Of course, you have to drive the speakers somehow. And one thing that you do in order to make that work is to have either a separate amplifier that actually does the trick, or you have built-in amplification. You have powered speakers. And that's exactly what we have here. If we turn this around without too much drama here, you can see on the back I have power in, I have a regular sort of speaker out, and then I have RCA inputs, the red and white cables that are coming directly from the turntable. This just simply goes to the back of this other speaker, and the speaker wire simply attaches from this. There's an amplifier built into this one, and then it speaks to this one. And simply by doing this basically is your built-in amplifier. It has input, as you can see. It has both a mini jack input, so you can plug in your phone if you want, if you actually want a wire or any other device. I plugged in a very high-end audio playback device, a personal playback device, just because I could. But really, you're probably going to be using RCA inputs or the mini jack input for that. But this also allows you to switch on the front. You can see this this volume switch slash control switch. This allows you to switch back and forth between Bluetooth input or auxiliary input. There is a remote control, so you can control the volume with it, volume up and down. It has a pairing mode for the Bluetooth. It allows you to change input, and it allows you to change bass and treble on the speakers. Now, the speakers are, again, kind of what you expect with this sort of range. Moderate to decent. And really what the huge advantage of these is that ability to actually get a little bit of space. If there's one thing that these have definitely over most Bluetooth speakers that are not separated like this, is a sense of imaging. When you're playing stuff back on a turntable, one of the great things that you can do, the audio is obviously not as crunched down as it normally. It's called audio compression, not to be confused with digital compression. I don't want to lose everybody here. But nonetheless, the music on especially older records has greater dynamic range. And one of the things that's nice when it's mixed with greater dynamic range and a sense of space is that you get this sort of wider audio space. The speakers sort of disappear to a certain extent. It's one of the wonderful things about listening to speakers, even opposed to headphones. So when you have a situation like this, you get a little bit of space. If I want something different, I can move these apart. I can toe them in and actually have the sound aim more towards me, or I can put them out. So toed in, actually have them straight on. I can even toe out if I want. If I want to feel really ambitious, I could put these on stands. I can do anything that I want with them while the turntable does its thing. The setup of the turntable, as explained in the documentation, was relatively straightforward. You basically just simply have to undo a couple twist ties and put the actual weight onto the arm itself. Now, something to be said, it gave very clear and explicit instructions about how to put on the counterweight. You're supposed to put it on to a couple clicks and then do counterclockwise back. I believe that's what it is. And that should be somewhere around the tracking force required for the cartridge. It's an Audio-Technica cartridge in it. One of these ceramic-y cartridges that you get with this sort of turntable stuff. It is replaceable. Now, I followed the instructions, but I also have a scale, one of these relatively inexpensive turntable scales that you can get, a micro scale that you put on, you measure the amount of grams, and it was significantly underweight when I set it up. That is a bit frustrating because most people aren't going to actually buy scales. If you are to buy any turntable, I thoroughly recommend that you get one. They're relatively inexpensive, and they're just something to have. It's like having a Phillips screwdriver. It's something that you actually can. I see somebody's actually coming to visit us. Here's my cat interrupting the video, because why wouldn't she? Please go away, I'm talking about record players. Now, the actual weight itself, once it's actually dialed in, the playback's quite good, but it's something to be actually well aware of. When you're underweighted, it's actually worse for your records than when you're overweighted. Underweighting sort of skips along the record in a sort of way, and actually can do damage to your record. So definitely be careful and definitely pay attention with that. That's why it's a small investment, even when you're getting something, reasonably introductory as this, to maybe think about actually adding on a turntable scale. You maybe only use it once when you actually set up, but maybe have a few friends that actually have turntables as well, and maybe you can be the person like me who wanders around with that scale and actually make sure that everything's adjusted correctly. Why not have one more scale in your house? Certainly, it's the only one that I'm actually happy with the numbers being seen. Regardless, the turntable itself, I've found the speed pretty solid. I did a test. There's no way to actually dial in faster or slower. It's just pretty close to 33 1/3 and 45. There's a power switch on the back. And you can, if you want, actually bypass. This has built-in phono preamp. One of the things that you need to know is that all records players, even to get into powered amplifiers, need to have their signals boosted from what's coming out of the cartridge to what's going into a regular, what's called a line level. And because of that, you either need a third party or a standalone phono box that does two things. It amplifies it up to a certain level, but it also applies an equalization curve. That is a longer conversation to have. Or you have one built in, and this turntable has one built in. I can simply take RCA out, put it into the speakers, and I'm done. If I want, there's a switch, and I can actually go with a third party turntable, or if my amplifier itself actually has a phono input. If I'm not plugging it into this kind of speakers, because obviously these are sold separately, this would actually work perhaps even better with a standalone amplifier that has its own EQ curves. And with as you upgrade, the turntable itself can actually sort of grow with the system as you can, and maybe use these speakers in another environment. Or maybe you're buying the speakers without the turntable, and eventually getting the turntable, the speakers do a pretty decent job of simply being good Bluetooth speakers that you can separate away. We're looking at it as a system, but you have to think of this as what they've done is they've created something very complementary. They obviously match aesthetically, and they make this good little sort of two-channel system here. But nonetheless, I think that you could absolutely consider this as a decent standalone beginner turntable, one that's going to play back your stuff in a good way. Certainly as you're getting into vinyl, it's not a crazy investment, but it's something that actually will do well, especially if you set it up correctly. And the same thing with the speakers. Maybe you've been stuck with like some sort of tiny little Bluetooth thing, and you want to go up, but you're not quite there of getting a receiver and big speakers. These Electrohome models are certainly one to look at. Again, the sound is decent. It's sort of commensurate with what your expectations would be for something at this level. For not a huge additional investment, we can get some things that perform a little bit better, but nothing quite as sort of straightforward as this. The fact that I have basically one cable coming out of the turntable, going in here, I have the power cable, I have them one speaker wire that goes from here to here, and I'm done, is great. I would have liked if there was actually keyholes on the back of these so that you could actually mount them on the wall, but one reason you can't do that is because they're backported. One way they could have gotten away with that is probably having them a little bit bigger and being front ported, and then they could actually be against a back wall without any issue. Because they are back ported, you want them at least a foot or so away from the back wall if you can do it. That way, the port on the back is obviously where some air is coming out. And what that means is that for bass information and stuff like that, you want a little bit of it to breathe. The closer it will be to the wall, you'll get a little bit more thumpy bass, not ideal. If it's so far away from the wall, it's just not going to sound particularly great either. So you kind of want to set these up as best as you can, sort of from here, from against the wall. Maybe put them on stands, maybe put them on shelves, and have a little bit of distance between them and the actual back wall to allow the sound to be richer. Again, you can adjust the towing, you can adjust the spacing, and get it so that it fits your listening position quite well. The turntable itself, again, power switch on the back. It auto stops at the end. It doesn't do an auto return, but allows you to very quickly select the track. It does everything that you would want it to do with a turntable of this caliber. It is a good starting system. I think that it's relatively attractive. This is sort of a wood material, and then on the bottom, they've actually taken this and actually sort of wrapped it in sort of a plasticky version to actually make the veneer appear there. I had a little bit of it lifting off, but very quickly actually allowed it to actually reattach. They're sort of aimed on a slight upwards direction, which is nice. If they're on a slightly lower thing, you can always adjust them however you want. I think that they're definitely worth taking a listen to. So that's our look at the Electrohome sort of system as we have here. We have the powered speakers, we have the EB30 speakers, and then we have the RR35 turntable. And between the two of these, we have everything that we need in order to make something that's really great sounding, and more importantly, to make use of your record player. Thanks so much for watching. Please let us know in the comments what you think about a system like this, and I look forward to seeing you next video. All the best. Take care.